And one of the many stories, because there's a lot of them, one of them was when he fell out.
Of the window?
Putting in a window. He fell. He dropped a few stories, managed to catch the scaffolding, literally, okay? Climbed back in and went back to work.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie Epstein and welcome to Business in Booths at the wonderful Center Square Grill in booming downtown East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. Hey everybody, it's Charlie Epstein and welcome to Business in Booths at the wonderful Center Square Grill in booming downtown East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. And I'm here with one of the most impactful entrepreneurs here in downtown East Longmeadow, Ed Zemba from
Robert Charles Photography, as well as a few other organizations. So, yeah.
So what are the names of the other organizations?
Well, just wrapped up.
I mean, because you've got we've got so much going on. It's kind of like the mystery box. Wow. What's Ed up to now, right?
It's been an eventful few years, that's for sure.
All right.
But
the names of the other organizations are?
So just wrapped up with a 2-year tenure with the East River Chamber, which has been fantastic, an amazing organization. As well as we launched a few years ago Unify Against Bullying, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. But that's a phrase that comes easier to you than me. But
stop bullying.
And that's been huge.
Unbelievable.
And then my son actually helped us launch a new initiative out in the Boston area. It's actually a Boston, Western Mass approach to a link between the business community and virtual and augmented reality, and it's called Link to VR.
Yeah,
so
we're going to get into that. Virtual and augmented reality. But let's go back in time, speaking of reality. Yeah. So where were you born?
So I was officially born downtown Springfield, Bay State.
That's official.
Yes.
You get the paper.
Yes, I got the papers and everything.
Good.
Actually, I did just get to see some papers the other day from my...
This is your Ellis Island?
Yeah. This is from my grandfather.
Did you come over the border?
I got it on my phone. I'll show you.
Yeah.
But my grandfather... he came over on the boat, just like they say, and his name from Poland.
Yeah.
And we were able to define for sure that my name originally was Zemba. For all my friends who have added an I to my name for my whole life, there's a good reason for it, because most of the Zembas that came over had an I. But my grandfather decided to ditch it and start his own group. So in come the Zembas. So, yeah.
Not the Zimbas.
No, not the Zimbas or the zombies. I've gotten it all in my mail, so yeah.
So you're third generation, like me, because my grandfather came over on the boat from Russia.
Yeah.
He was 12 years old with my great-grandfather, Isaac Abraham Epstein.
Wow.
They came over, settled in the Hartford area, and that's kind of where my dad grew up. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to have that certificate.
It is.
My father was actually going to throw it out. I caught him cleaning out the basement when they sold the house here in Longmeadow many years ago. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, you got to hang on to that.
He goes, what? It's just trash. I go, Dad, that's history.
Yeah, that's...
Right, now my brother and sister, they want it. I'm like, oh, no. I saved it. I own it. I own it. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up, most of my life was in East Hampton, Mass. So we jumped around a little bit. We did Three Rivers. We went out to Westfield for a while, but I was just a little guy at that time. What I remember was the plains of East Hampton, Mass. That's where I spent most of my youth, which was a pretty amazing place to grow up, honestly, as a kid.
Right.
We literally had
cell phones.
No. The lights, the lights go on at night. You got to come home.
That's right, at 6 o'clock.
We're always late.
Remember those days? I remember, I used to think it wasn't when the lights came on. It's just like we just looked up in the sky and we went, 6 o'clock, I got to get home.
Yeah. No, for us, it was the lights, and then we'd hear the moms would come outside and they'd start screaming. We'd pretend, yeah. You could get away with like 3 to 5. Maybe you'd be okay if you didn't catch the first 3 to 5. After 5, though, you were toast.
So when your grandfather came over and settled,
Yep.
What did they do? What was the family?
So my grandfather's a bit of a legend in our family. This is my dad's father's,
Right.
my namesake Edward.
Yeah.
So he, among many different things, he was a glazier. So to give you an idea of how strong he was a rocketing 5'4". Okay, now I know that because I just saw it in a certificate. I was checking it out. He was 5'4". He helped carry the glass to the top of the buildings in downtown Springfield. Okay.
Wow.
And one of the many stories, because there's a lot of them, one of them was when he fell out.
Of the window?
Putting in a window. He fell. He dropped a few stories, managed to catch the scaffolding, literally, okay, climbed back in, and went back to work.
No. Wow.
That was my grandfather.
Wow.
And there's a lot of stories like that about him. He's where I like to think a lot of our work ethic came from.
Yeah.
There's other parts about his history that I'm not as excited about, but the part that I can't say enough about.
It's a family show. We don't need to cover
I know.
that.
I'm just saying. No, because he was imperfect like everybody. And it was a different era.
No. We were perfect.
No, yes.
Just the way we were.
But no, he was a bit of a legend in my family.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So then how did the photography come about with your dad?
So my father, he actually taught physics for 12 years. He taught physics for 12 years, which is why we like to say where he got his understanding of light.
Where did he
And
teach
he taught
physics?
at West Side.
Okay.
And he was actually not much older than the kids he was teaching. So he would get stopped in the hallways for a hall pass. And he would sometimes have fun with it. He would just walk away, or he would just like say, "Oh, I left it in my locker." Yeah, and stuff like that. And he would just bust on the teacher, which the kids loved. So he was a very, very popular teacher. As a matter of fact, many of our first clients were past students of his who would come in with stories about my father.
Oh,
and my father, as you know, has played a very big role in my life at many levels. And his teaching actually, his strengths in teaching played over in the photography world because he taught many of our region's best photographers. He helped introduce a lot of photographers, many of whom are not practicing anymore, and some of them are. And he's he was always about helping others, I think, and that's a big part of where some of the things that our family's involved with today, that comes from.
So when did he go from teaching physics to launching?
Well, so one of the points where he decided he wanted to go into photography, he was doing photography part-time for a while. But part of what made him make the move, and this is something that's bothered me about what teachers have to put up with today, was when he started to feel like teachers weren't being given the support that they needed to be able to do what they were there for. And specifically with regard to, for instance, my father, what you guys may notice about us is we're what we call huggy family. So we like to give people hugs and tell them how much you care about them and high fives and all that kind of stuff. And, you can't go near kids today, let alone put your hand on their shoulder and say, hey, it's going to be all right. And my father, he had a hard time with that. And he liked the idea of being able to go into a profession that gave him the opportunity to connect with people on a meaningful level, and be able to do something really special for him. So that was part of it. But I say that because I think that I just look at the teachers today and I say, God bless you guys. I mean, what you have to put up with, the challenges and the things that they're put up against, and yet they go in every day and make such a huge difference in kids' lives. And part of the reason Unify exists is to help make it easier for those teachers, which I like to think tiles back to my father and his history.
Absolutely. So did you, when you were growing up, I mean, what got your interest? I mean,
so for photography, I mean, So interestingly
did you get hooked by it at all?
So my history is that
because you're not the one running around with a camera, so
no. And my dad would be the first to tell you that if I had come first, I'd be an only child. So, and there's like no exaggeration on that one. Because I gave. All right,
so let's step back. How many of them are you?
Well, my brother's the responsible one. He's the oldest. It's my brother Robert Francis Zemba. He's the principal photographer for Robert Charles Photography. Also the other half owner of the studio.
Fantastic! I have an amazing photo album from my wedding that they did that was just off the charts. When people see it, they're like, "Oh my God!" Yeah, we had a great time with Bob.
And I can't say enough about my brother. My brother and I, back at the beginning, my dad sort of sent me off in the business side. My brother picked up the camera and went off after the photography side. He was always the artist growing up.
Yeah.
I was always the troublemaker getting and pushing the boundaries.
Translation entrepreneur.
Yeah,
so, what I've discovered about interviewing entrepreneurs is if you weren't a troublemaker, you weren't going to be a good entrepreneur.
Now, I think it comes as a prerequisite.
Right? But if you were like a really good kid, straight and narrow, one of my favorite stories is, I don't remember who it was, but somebody was giving a talk at Harvard Business School.
Yep.
Some radical entrepreneur, I can't remember the guy's name, and he said, I'd like all the A students to stand up, all the Harvard business A students stood up, and he said, great. He said, now I'd like all the C and D students to stand up, they kind of stand up, and he goes, okay, now I want all the A students to turn to the C and D students and say, hello, boss.
Nice.
Because the A students were going to be the COO and the CIO, and the guys that had the C's, the D's, and the F's were going to be the entrepreneurs who were going to go out and start the business and hire these guys, and they were going to be the boss. So,
I think there's something about that inner drive of wanting to make a difference in the world, leave your mark, all that kind of stuff. And I think as a kid, that can be tough to put into a box, and in formal education sort of forces that. And I'm not, again, knocking on that. I'm just saying it is what it is. So I think a lot of kids who are in that situation, they don't understand why they're pushing back so hard, but they do that. And with me, my education, and I talk about this in schools at times, I was not an A student, to say the least. And
did you go to college?
I did.
Where'd you go?
Well, I went to Western New England, among others. I went to Azatuck, Western New England. I graduated college with almost a 4.0. It was a 3.96.
So
but
close.
The reason that I did that was because in high school, I thought I was doing the teachers a favor and my parents a favor by getting good grades. I don't know where that came from, but that's what it was in my head. And I thought I'd get back at them by just skimming through. And then when I got into working for my father, and I had an instance where I was following up with a bride. And now one of the things from being in private business is that clients are extremely honest. They don't have kid gloves. They don't hold back and be careful and say, oh, I'm really sorry about that. So when I called the bride and followed up, and she said to me over the phone, oh, yeah, I received your information. She goes, did you write something at the bottom of it, like a PS? I said, yeah. She goes, yeah, I couldn't understand a word you were saying, and did you even graduate high school? You know what? I'm actually all set. Thank you. And then she hung up the phone on me.
Oh.
True story. And I sat there staring at the wall, and I literally said the words out loud. That's what Mrs. Griggs was talking about. Okay. Swear to God, I said that. And I turned to Eileen.
Was Mrs. Griggs your English teacher?
She was my English teacher.
Right.
And when I asked her.
Penmanship?
Oh, yeah. No, penmanship, everything. When I went to her one day and I said, why do you need to know what an adjective and a verb is? I don't get it. I said, you're going to say what's up to somebody in the hallway sometime, and they're going to say, hey, there's not an adjective in that sentence? So what she said to me was, the reason you need to learn is because you have to get through me to graduate. Which is the worst thing you can say to somebody in that situation, unfortunately. So I thought I'd show her. So I got like a D-, okay? Just so she had to graduate me.
Right.
But I could show her that I didn't want anything to do with her.
You were a pain in the ass like me.
So the one B I got in college was English. But that was when I went back and I realized that actually it was my fault. I had written myself off as a kid. I thought I wasn't capable of getting an A. So when I got my first A in a business class, I was shocked. And I went home and I told my parents that I couldn't believe that I had gotten such a grade. And I literally told both my parents, I said, do you realize if I study, I can actually get a good grade? And they were like, the angels came down, the clouds parted, and all that. So so I think it's an inner drive thing that you have to find.
So did you and Bob, other kids, other siblings, or just the two?
No, my sister also. My sister, Christine, she worked for Robert Charles for about 15 minutes with my brother and I.
That was good. But like growing up around the dinner table, I mean, was your dad there with the cameras and talking about it?
Yeah.
Or, but what year did he finally say, I'm done teaching and I'm going 100% into the photography?
Sure. So he was 12 years in. So what I can tell you about that transition is my father actually went into work. He went in to buy what was Stevens Photography. He turned to Robert Charles, largely because there was a go-between owner who bought Stevens Photography, drove it into the ground. There was a major tax situation. and all the brides weren't going to have a photographer. So my father broke into the studio through a window, got all of the information. He was just a manager, but he got all the information.
Oh, he worked there.
He worked there. So he got all the information, brought it back to our kitchen table, and he called every single bride to tell them that one way or another he would make sure that they had a photographer.
If he worked there, why did he have to break in?
Because they locked the door, they changed the locks. And everything.
Because
it was
the
a
business
government
was
thing.
under.
Yeah, it was a bad deal. Yeah, and it was in the papers, and the brides were all freaking out, understandably. So he called them all up.
I think I remember this.
Yeah, this was Stevens Photography at the time. And then he figured out, he went back to Steve Graziano, the guy who sold it to this other person, and said to Steve Graziano, hey, listen, I don't like what's going on. I don't really necessarily want to run a business, but we got to fix this. So Steve said, you know what, Bob, you'd be a great business owner. Let's pull that together and make it happen.
So they go in business together?
He sort of, more like my dad bought it, but Steve helped.
Right.
He just kind of guided him. Yeah. And then
where'd the name Robert Charles come from?
So my dad's name is Robert Charles Zemba, otherwise known as Bobby Chuck's place. But yeah, we don't really talk about that on there. I think that's the first time I've ever actually said that on video. But anyway, so my dad used to.
This is history making right here.
That and the other one he had.
Bobby Chuck's. Yeah. It's like my son's tagline is Bobby Joe Taco.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. And then it was he had Mr. Charles on his desk, and that was his thing back in the day. We used to get all the telemarketers before the internet and spam, so he would know if somebody was calling and saying this is a personal call from Mr. Charles, that it was a telemarketer. So he thought that was pretty cool. But his uncle was Charles.
All right, so you go off to Western England, go off to Osnantuck, you actually graduate, finally get a degree. Are you working in the business with your dad while you're doing that?
I paid for my degree through the business.
Okay, so you literally, out of high school,
years.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, no. Okay, so I did do I had a rocketing career at Puppy Center for a while, actually. Woo. Yeah, I did that and Radio Shack. Okay. But my father managed to somehow pull me away from Puppy Center, Radio Shack to work for the family business.
These are deep roots.
It was tough.
These are deep roots. All right, so your dad definitely was an influence.
Yes.
Who else in your life would you say was a big influence?
My mom, huge influence. One thing about my mom is, that and she would fight when she believed in something. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
That's
God bless
where it
your
came.
mom.
That's where the fire came from. Because your dad was a quiet guy.
Yes.
So the fire in your belly is from mom.
That's largely Unify.
Yeah.
Like Unify is mom saying you got to do something about this.
Nice.
You can't just sit there and watch.
Wow.
So yeah, mom's a big part of that.
That is really great. Anybody else? Dad, mom, and
gosh, I mean,
any outside mentors or?
I would say that outside of my immediate family, there have been numerous business mentors. For example, Peter Roscothan from the Cabin. Yeah. He and I met through the Rotary Club here in East Long Meadow. And we were probably, in our 20s at the time. So with our age added, the median age was around 63, 64. So we became pretty good friends.
Nice.
Out of the gate, and then kind of went from there. And then there's a bunch of other folks. Scott Kirkian, who's a good friend of mine out of the Professional Photographers Association of America. He actually is the chief financial officer. And he helped us take Robert Charles Photography from sort of a fledgling company to one of the most successful studios in the United States, according to the PPA.
Mm-hmm. It's big.
And that was a big deal, and he was a big part of that. So yeah, and there's plenty more.
So what do you love most about this work? Because I mean, it's having gone through the experience, having gone through the. Well, let's say I got to step back because. Remember, I am a customer of your dad's.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, you are.
Having grown up at Long Meadow High School and been part of the whole, you got to get your class picture and all that stuff. I can remember all that. So, I mean, that was kind of basics. And then flash forward when my wife and I got married, it's going to be 10 years in August.
Yep.
August 10th, it's going to be 10-year anniversary.
Sure.
And we came in and, it was a whole, so, what do you love about your work? Because it shines through in the experience.
No, I mean, I think a big part of what makes Robert Charles Photography, the company, special is the fact that our core mission is to exceed expectations. So when we bring folks through, it's just understood from the beginning that we are trying to go beyond anything that they could expect. Even though we have you could be kind of a victim of your own success because then folks come in with high expectations. So, but we still are committed to exceeding them.
It's like, actually, I walked in and, I see all these beautiful people on the wall, and I turn to my wife, who's beautiful, and I'm going, what am I doing here, right? I mean, and she's like, it's okay, honey. They have makeup, and they can also, they can
special
brush.
lenses,
They
Charlie.
can special lens you now.
So honestly,
So all my wedding pictures are special lensed, right?
Well, Mike, first of all, you bring a lot. You bring them a lot to any shoot.
Right, but back to you.
Your team here would talk about. No. But I'm saying that because that's emblematic to a lot of other folks too, who think that they're not particularly photogenic, and that your personality, your drive, who you are, all of that matters. It's the whole package, okay? And a big part of the secret that my brother Robert and Susanna, my wife, bring to the table with Robert Charles Photography is that they're able to help people relax and just be themselves. My father used to say that, anybody can take a photograph of, somebody looks like. It takes something really special to be able to capture something that reflects who that person really is. And that's something that Robert Charles Photography, again, has been sort of committed to since the start. And I mentioned my brother and my wife so much because, to be honest, over the last few years especially, I've actually been dialing out of the leadership role with my brother and my wife really stepping in with this other venture that my son and I have been going on.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
But it's a true family commitment. It's a team effort, as any organization will tell you. We have a tremendous group of folks that work with us, and they help us raise the bar every day. So I can't say enough about that.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing today. I mean, retaining really great talent.
Oh, for sure.
In this labor market. So
absolutely.
How have you been able to do that? I mean, what's the longest an employee has lasted with you?
That's a great question for a company like us, because the truth of it is it's tough because we aren't a Mass Mutual, and we don't pretend to be, and we understand that. And Mass Mutual is one of our clients, so we love Mass Mutual. So anyway, well, Mass Mutual, nice little plug there.
Roger, it's okay.
So, but they might have one or two things they can bring to the table.
Fanning, it's okay.
Okay. We're a little bit smaller, slightly. So lifestyle, I think, is a big play. And the answer to your question is we've had folks for over, we had one team member for over 20 years. She worked there longer than my brother and I.
It's incredible.
At the same time, we recognize that some folks are going to come through a little quicker. It might be a couple of years, and that's okay. Hopefully, when they come through, they experience something special. They're able to take that with them to the next job. We stay in touch with a ton of our alumni. And then we have special team members that stay with us and that grow with us over time, and that we work really hard to find ways to be able to make sure that they're getting opportunity and growth. Because you know what? If you're not getting that, I wouldn't stay.
You stagnate. So let's talk about that growth, because I know you're excited about this new venture with your son.
Sure.
And it's pretty cutting edge, right? The world of augmented reality,
virtual reality,
mixed reality,
XR.
Is there any reality?
Is there any?
Right? What's it all about, Alfie?
So
tell me how this all came about.
So we were one of the first in all of New England to adopt digital, way before everybody else. We had to make friends with a bunch of banks in the area and really go all in because we really didn't think it was a good idea to just play around at the edges, right? So we did that, and we watched it grow our company just many, many times over, and it was a fantastic move for us, whereas we watched a lot of other folks who had hung back kind of get in trouble. So
kind of like the Kodak story, right?
Yeah, Kodak's crazy,
Right? Kodak created the first digital camera.
Steve Sasson.
Brings it to them. And what do the executives say? Where's the chemical? Where's the paper? Nobody wants this thing. And then, boom.
The famous line was from the C-level.
Decimates.
This should apply to any entrepreneur. C-level representative said, no one will ever look at a photograph on a TV screen. That was in the New York Times. I mean, it's now in fairness, it's easy for all of us to look back and joke about it, but you know what? When you're in the moment, it's not as easy to see as people think.
Right.
And that's actually, frankly, a big part of where this whole next.
Well, this gets into this conversation of disruptive technologies, right? So here you are, I mean, this is so critical for any business person watching this, right?
Sure.
Which is, where's the puck going? Right. So there you are. You got all these cameras. You got all this equipment. You got all this money invested. And you've been going down this path. And it's, you're in the dark room, right? And you're with the water and the chemicals, and you're clipping photos up, right? Was that?
Yeah.
That's people don't even know, right? They don't even know what that was all about.
Kids
right?
don't even have a clue about.
And then it was like, who first?
Yeah.
Do you remember what year it was when you were like digital? What?
So we actually, my brother and I saw our first digital image. Gosh, even way before that, almost like 7 or 8 years before we went digital. It was in Northampton. We were down there for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles event of some kind because he and I grew up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we were in Thorns, and there was this printing company that mentioned they had heard we were there, and they said, "Hey, have you seen some of the stuff you can do with digital?" And they showed us our first. It was like just like this 8x10 print, and I still have it somewhere. That took, I don't know, like 2 hours to print or something. I mean, it was crazy, and there was no economics that made sense at that time. But they were like, "This is possible," and that was when our light bulb first went on and said, "Okay, we got to pay attention to this." And then over the years we watched, and it was actually, I want to say 2000 was really when we went all in. We had been buying equipment before that, but it was 2000 because all of our work in 2001 forward we have digital copies of. So
and this was really, like a huge investment, right?
Yeah, this was.
When you say you had to go to the banks.
Yeah,
right?
It was big. It was big. It was a significant.
And they had to buy into it.
Oh yeah.
Because it's the computers, it's the cameras, it's the whole just approach.
Everything was changing. The funny part though that everybody thought back then, and including the banks, fortunately, was we were going to save all sorts of money. Okay. And
because you can.
Oh yeah, film's gone.
Film is gone.
Processing's gone.
Yeah, there's no cost. You want 1 million photos? Boom, 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 boom.
No, doesn't work like that. No. All we did was we moved the numbers around on the spreadsheet. So basically, in many ways, the lab became the bank. Because now all of a sudden, whereas we didn't have to have all these computers before, we not only had to buy all the computers that year, but then 3-4 years later, we had to buy all new ones
every year.
Because at the time, the images were doubling and tripling in size. Yeah. So what would happen is you get the new system, it would come out. And you had to buy the new cameras, by the way, at that time because they were the order of magnitude they were improving was just enormous.
Exponential.
So being that you had that, you really had to invest. So we would be buying new gear, and of course, you know what it looks like when you go to resell old technology.
It's worth it.
So we were constantly having to reinvest and grow it out, and yet we did, and it worked really well. And it wasn't so much that there were benefits to it for sure, so many benefits. But as far as there being a quote cost savings, it was more just moving it around. And then it did give us a tremendous competitive advantage in the market. That was the big upside.
Gotcha.
And then coming full circle to today. So then when my son comes to me in the kitchen,
right,
and
5 years ago, Joe comes to you and says, "Dad,
I got this idea.
Here's the future."
Yeah. And he pops this thing on my head, and it's virtual reality.
Yeah.
And it's the Google Cardboard, which is about as rudimentary as you can get, but I'm holding this thing, and I'm looking around, and I'm in a movie. I'm not watching a movie. I'm actually in the movie. There's a bunny bouncing around behind me in my kitchen. Okay, and I'm trying to figure how does this all make sense. Taking it off, I'm looking. There's really no bunny there. I put it back on, and I'm taken away by this whole experience. And he then goes on to explain to me how big a deal this is. So he and I started doing research. He had a peer group at the time. There was a group of friends of ours, Eli being one, Bill Cole from Tiger Web Design, Neil Del Padre from Del Padre Visual, and a whole bunch of others that we reached out to, obviously my brother and others, to just get input and guidance, ideas, find out how real it was. We went out to LA, which is where the heart of this whole world really is right now, and did the research. Is this a real thing? Now his approach, my son's approach was that he felt this was going to be tremendously disruptive, not just to the visual media world, which we're now in, and we not only photograph, we also do video. And his thought was this is going to transform the way people think of still imagery and video imagery. And he then went bigger and said, I think it's going to be a lot bigger than that. He said, I think this is going to affect manufacturing, engineering, medical, etc. So as we started going down that road and doing the research, we realized that this might be a huge opportunity. So one of the things I'll also be very real with you about is that my brother and I have been in business together for a long time. My brother has always been the very conservative one of our group. Okay,
Sure.
he has always been very happy with a 3%, 5% growth rate, things like that. And of course, I'd go to the family meetings with my dad being like, I think we can do 50% this year. Okay. And my dad would just be like, what?
True entrepreneur.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
We had spirited meetings on this particular subject. So
Right.
we would talk about this a lot. So one of the things my brother and I talked about years ago was he, at the time, was doing lots of weddings. I mean, lots of weddings. Now, I wasn't shooting weddings. I was doing the business side of it. So he was the one that was getting up at 2 a.m, doing all this or getting up. Sometimes it probably would
Sure.
be 2, but he had to be at the hair salon for 6, 7 a.m. He'd do it all day long. He'd get home at 2, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he comes to me and says, weddings have been great. I've loved them, but I want a different lifestyle. Because I really, really, really want a different lifestyle. My friends that I went to talk to, including Peter, by the way, from the cabin, thought I was nuts. He said, what do you mean get out of weddings? You guys are making a huge living in this. Why would you ever do that? Have somebody else take on those roles, things like that. But Bob really, as 50% owner, made it clear he wanted out. He wanted to step out of weddings altogether. He really wanted to focus on the commercial growth and the portrait growth. Work with the families we had done weddings for, but that just really wasn't his focus anymore because of the lifestyle part of it.
Yeah,
it is a huge personal commitment.
Yeah.
So we looked at the numbers, we figured out a path, and we made an agreement. He said, if you can get me completely out of weddings, we can continue to maintain my lifestyle. I can no longer have to do evening appointments. I no longer have to work weekends, et cetera, et cetera. He goes, I will help you underwrite a company. He goes, whatever it is you want to do, you figure it out, but I'll help you underwrite it.
Nice.
So about 7 years ago, we hit the magic world of the wedding end of it. And Bob got his life. He got to do what he wanted. He was able to come in and out on a much more relaxed lifestyle schedule. He could take days off when he wanted, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I started looking, and that was when my son came along and presented this concept. So that was when we went to Bob and we said, we may have it. This might be it. So we kind of had Joe take lead, and he went off and started it. And it's gone very, very well. Over the last few years, I've gotten a lot more involved. So now I'm going out to Boston and having meetings with my son and growing the company, and it's gone far better than we ever expected. And then what else is great about it is there's a tremendous synergy with Robert Charles Photography, because the 360 media, for instance, where we did a 360 video for MGM, and we did another one for Carter Monday, and there's a lot of interest in that space. That's something that Robert Charles Photography can kind of focus on and grow, along with 360 still imagery. There's a whole world that's growing, that's exponential, and that's incredibly valuable to a company like Robert Charles Photography with the advent of the cell phone. And we're all aware of the fact that the cell phone can do some pretty amazing stuff.
Right.
So in addition to us providing, hopefully, an exceptional experience to families that come through, if we can add to that some levels of technology that they could never imagine before, it goes further. And that's where augmented reality comes in. So this is where we might lose half the audience, so I apologize. But just think of it this way. Think of a photograph of you that we might take today.
Yeah.
And it's a still image.
Yeah.
Okay? And we have you, and it's a great photograph. It's got all the perfect lighting, and you love it. Okay? But then in addition to that being a still photograph, when we download your app and we take your phone and just point it towards the image, you come to life in the image. And you share a story about your family's history. And you tell us a little bit about what it means to you.
Just like a pop-up?
It's not even a pop-up. It's like you literally come to life. Like your image.
My avatar?
No, not avatar.
Okay.
This is you.
This is me.
The real deal.
We're not even in the avatar
So let me walk you
world.
through how it works. So we get the still image where you look amazing. And we put the still image up on the wall. Just like a traditional print.
Yep.
Okay? By the way, the reason this is hard to explain is it doesn't exist yet. We're coming up with it, okay? But this will be coming out in the coming months. So you have the still image, and then what you can do is take an app, you point the app at the still image, and now there's a video that we took of you talking about your family history, that we froze the first frame similar to the actual portrait.
Yep.
So effectively what happens is your portrait, think of
Comes
the
alive.
video being embedded in the portrait.
I'm thinking like Abe Lincoln at the first New York World's Fair in 1963 when he stands up and starts talking.
That's exactly what we're going for.
Right. Only this time my photo comes alive.
Yes.
And I start talking.
But the ability,
how freaking creepy would that be, right?
The ability to preserve history is what we're after. The creepiness factor we're going to try to stay away from. But the idea that you can now preserve history. So like you mentioned,
Nice.
Rochester with Mass
Well,
Mutual.
no, but telling people's family stories, right? Oh, go ahead.
But there's the Hall of Presidents at Mass Mutual, and
Yeah.
that's at a lot of large Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Well, now think about that they're going to be able to preserve some history, and there'll be a message that will live with that image forever.
So do you guys go in and film
Yeah.
the person telling the story and then connects it with the photo and the
Right.
augmented reality?
Yes. Or another simpler example from a marketing standpoint is,
Yep.
let's say, Bill from CSG decides he wants to send out a postcard with some announcement of a new dish or something like that.
Yeah.
He can actually embed a video into the postcard. So when folks get the postcard, they actually take their phone, point it at the postcard, and a video plays on the postcard as if it's embedded on the postcard.
Hey, it's
itself.
Bill here.
There
I
you
was
go.
locked in my postcard. Can I please get out?
We are not putting you in charge of marketing for this, Charlie. But yes,
I'm loving it.
And what I
Well,
go ahead.
But so the other thing is, because I've seen a lot of this with the group you and I've talked
Yes.
about, A360, Repeater Diamantis, but some of the things I've seen with the augmented and virtual reality is in the manufacturing area, which you talked
Yes.
about. I don't know if you guys are getting involved in that.
Yep.
Where you can take a car and blow it into its pieces,
Yep.
and then actually, reach out and
Yes.
touch and design and then bring all this stuff together. Are you guys
So-
getting involved in any of that kind of stuff?
One of our clients is Dell EMC, and what they do is they had us create a hologram
Yep.
of their product, which is called the VX Rail Appliance. So it's basically just a server, is the simplest way to say it. So
Yep.
it's a server. But the idea is that the server weighs about 80 pounds to carry this thing around. So we were able to create a hologram that lives on this postcard, and they actually rolled it out in Vegas a few weeks ago at a huge trade show. And there were folks from all over the world that were blown away by the technology, being able to interact with this hologram, and they were blowing up their social media with it and all that kind of fun stuff. So
Wow.
it's a game changer. It means that you can bring things into website design and whatnot that is now in 3 dimensions. So engineering firms can email engines
Yeah.
all over the world that folks can interact with in full 3 dimensions right off of their laptop.
Yep.
So it's a game changer, and it's one of those things where, again, I try to be careful how much I go into it, because I start glazing over and feel like,
No,
it's-
but this is great, because I was
yeah.
going to ask you, what's trending right now? What are you most excited about? This sounds like it, huh?
I would say, well, in the world, I get asked a lot about the investment side of it because, tying into your world. So Goldman Sachs is projecting spatial computing to be a $110 billion industry by the year 2025.
That's exciting.
So that's a big industry, right?
Mm.
And it's just getting off the mark right now.
Yeah.
So the upside, it's a hockey stick curve, right? So VR is a very exciting space to be in from training side of it, because you can fully immerse folks and they can be give that feeling of presence. So the retention goes from like 10% to 70%.
Yep.
So that's a huge plus for training. So you're going to see a lot of that. Walgreens, 17,000 units last year for training purposes, stuff like that. But the area that I honestly think that most folks should pay attention to is the AR. The AR is the augmented reality. That's the space where you don't have to put a headset on. So there's not the barrier of entry to the headset.
Huh.
AR allows the cell phone to work. So everybody's got a cell phone.
Yeah.
So with augmented reality, with the millions and millions and millions of cell phones that are out there for people to play with, you can activate these experiences. And when you have a company like Apple, which is investing billions of dollars a year specifically in AR, it's a serious play. So I think that from a business standpoint, anybody that's sort of paying attention to this space, kind of focus on the AR side of it and just pay attention to it, because it's definitely going to disrupt a lot of industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what technologies do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. With all this going on, what's the greatest decision you've made in your life to date?
Gosh, that's a big one. Okay, well, I got an easy answer. And it's totally just the first one that comes to mind, and it's totally the way it is. My wife, Susie Zemba, and my asking her to marry me. That was by far, without question, the best decision I ever made in my life. Maybe not, she might not be able to say the same.
Well, all right, we're not, that's all right.
I'm going to say that.
And what would you say the greatest mistake you've ever made in your life?
Greatest mistake. I guess that one would be not getting even more time with my father before I lost him. I guess I could say the same thing for my mom too, for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But geez, man, you know you're gonna miss your parents, but when you're
But
gone,
you worked with them, so
yeah, it's tough.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
I feel that a lot with
Yeah.
both of them, and
Yeah.
that anybody who has their parents, man, it's so easy to be like, oh, I'll get out to them, see them next week, I'll see them the next week, I'll see them the next week,
No.
and
Hang
whatever
on.
time you can.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's great. So there's a series of questions I asked everybody in this interview, and I don't know if you ever saw the show Inside the Actors Studio.
Yes, I did actually. That's it.
James Lipton,
Guy's brilliant.
probably one of the best interviewers I've ever watched, and
Yeah.
interviewed all these great actors. And then he took a series of questions from his kind of mentor, this French individual. And I just love these questions. So
Yeah.
I'm asking everybody the same questions. So the first one is, what's your favorite word?
Done.
Okay. What's your least favorite word?
My least favorite word. Gosh, I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess I might say I don't know.
Okay.
And it's technically no. I mean, that's 3 words. But that phrase, I don't know, drives me because I don't like it.
Right.
I like to know.
Yep.
So if I'm in a situation where I don't understand something, I will spend a lot of time researching it to try to get my head around it so I could best grasp it and figure out how to put it to use for our family and for our businesses.
Got it. What turns you on?
Well, I did mention my wife earlier, but what turns me on?
That's good.
What turns me on in business, honestly, is innovation. I love innovation. I love to see growth. I love to see new, exciting concepts. I love the idea of trying things that nobody have ever tried before. Yeah.
That's great. What turns you off?
Being stagnant, people that want to stay exactly the same. I think that's a very dangerous position to be in, no matter what. And even on a personal side, in personal relationships, I don't think it's healthy for that either. I think that, it's not always easy to welcome the new. I get it. But I think we're all better off looking to the future and not getting stuck in the past.
That's great. What's your favorite curse word?
I hope you bleep it out later, but it's 2 words. Yeah.
What occupation other than yours would you absolutely love to do?
Well, right now I gotta say I'm jumping into a world that has been incredibly exciting, which is the world of XR, which is extended reality. And I gotta say I don't think there's really anything else out there. I'd like to do more than that, but if I had to pick another one, I would say teaching would definitely be up there for me because I feel that calling a little bit with my dad. So I do believe that someday in my life I will do some teaching.
Nice. And what occupation other than yours would you absolutely hate to do?
I try to think that there's something cool in every job. I really try to think that. But I will say that cleaning kennels was one of the hardest jobs I ever had. And I don't think I would run back to that job anytime soon.
I don't think I've ever heard that one. I love that. Cleaning dog kennels.
Yeah.
No.
Especially in the winter. It's a little tougher in the winter.
All right. And if heaven existed, what would you like to hear God say to you when you enter the pearly gates?
Gosh.
He's calling right now.
Yeah, no, he's on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What I'd like to hear him say?
Yeah.
That sounds totally corny, but honestly, welcome to the family reunion.
Nice.
And
That's nice.
yeah.
All right. Speaking of family reunions, so I have something here.
Okay.
This is the photo your father took of me.
Oh my God.
My senior year in high school. That's my senior.
Okay.
We got a shot?
Come
Can I
on.
close in on that one?
Oh my God, that's fantastic. That's brilliant.
Here, look at the afro. Isn't that great?
That is spectacular. So, if you had a handful of
you can
words,
sit.
oh, sorry, yeah.
That's all right.
What do you think if I had taken you aside that day, or my dad took you aside that day, and said what you thought your future would hold for you? What do you think you would have said?
world.
Nice.
No, I was going off to be an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was headed to Colgate, so
Yeah.
who the hell knows? But wow.
But you had that in your heart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I did it too. I pursued it. Absolutely. Yeah.
And you've carried that with you.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
That's spectacular. Can I bring that back? I want to show this to the team.
Yeah. Absolutely. I remember working with your dad too.
Really?
Yeah, because we were off. We were off in the woods.
Yep.
You can see the tree shot, right?
Yep.
A little birch in the background. I remember him going, let's go across the street and see if we can do something with that hair of yours.
Yeah, that sounds like my dad. That sounds
Absolutely.
Like my dad.
All right, so we got this jukebox here that Bill and I bought, and it's now the fine member of Center Square Grill.
Yes.
And everybody at an interview, I asked, what's your favorite song?
So my favorite song is Kodachrome by Paul Simon.
By Paul Simon. That's a great song. So augmented reality, right?
Yep.
How did the whole bullying thing come about?
Unify Against Bullying.
How did that all get going?
So that came.
Big.
Yeah, that came from basically seeing a lot of kids, including my own, deal with some pretty heavy challenges. Coming up, even myself, I dealt with some. Sometimes I did a really good job, sometimes not so much. But watching your own kids deal with it and their friends, it's different.
It's hard.
So when we went through some challenges in that department, we started looking for some support in the area, thinking that we would find something. And there were lots of pockets of different things here and there, but we couldn't find anything that was really exceptional, that was bringing all of Western Mass together over this issue. There were, again, lots, and the people that we did meet were struggling financially to be able to fulfill their mission.
Yeah.
So we thought, well, we may not know a ton about bullying, but we know how to raise money because we've done a fairly good job of that with some other efforts over the years. So we thought, well, maybe we could start an organization that could help raise money to help address this issue. So we started with some pretty modest objectives, and it grew considerably.
Yeah.
And now it's its own 501c3. The first year that we did an event, which is our fashion show, which is October of this year, if you go to unifyagainstbullying.org. October is National Bullying Awareness Month, so that's why the show is in there. But our first year, honestly, we lost $500 doing the show.
Well, that's a startup.
Yeah, but Peter and I met for breakfast.
Huscassin? Yeah.
And we both said, well, we can't come out the first year, losing money.
Right.
Said, so what do we do? And Peter was like, I'll put in a couple grand if you put in a couple grand. And he stepped up big time, and we stepped up a little bit. And sure enough, we ended up being able to announce we raised $5,000 our first year. And then it took off from there. Last year we raised, it was $65,000.
Wow.
So so it's grown a lot, and it's a real testament to Western Mass. And we started something.
It's a testament to you.
Well,
someone's got to start. Someone's got to lead. That's what it is to be an entrepreneur. You got to lead.
Well, you know what I would love to challenge you to do with me?
Go ahead.
We're going to need to find the marker for this, but we started something called the Unify Selfie Challenge. So the Unify Selfie Challenge is basically where you write the word Unify in your hand, you hold it up to your mouth and you do a selfie, and then you challenge your friends to do the same thing. And the idea is to help bring awareness to the silence of bullying. So the idea is that we're all unifying to bring an end to the silence. And by doing that, we've been able to get this challenge out on the internet. And it's actually been done in over 56 countries worldwide.
Wow.
And a whole bunch of celebrities like Captain America and Stranger Things and all these other big celebrities have done it. So I know they're not quite at your level, Charlie, but if we could maybe get you to join us and do you in for that?
You got it.
All right, cool.
All right.
Man. Well, let's do that.